You're listening to Backchat, the podcast that takes you backstage for a chat every Friday on all major platforms. Recorded in Dublin, Ireland, and broadcast around the world. Join Michael O'Reilly and his guest weekly to discuss the entertainment realm and all of its secrets with leading musicians, actors, and entertainers. Before this episode begins, follow us on Instagram at back.chatpodcast and check out our Facebook. But for now, you're listening to Backchat.
Hello and welcome back to Backchat, the podcast that takes you backstage for a chat every 2 weeks on all major platforms. First of all, a huge thanks to everyone who listened to and supported the Rob Reeves, aka Saviour Haha episode 2 weeks ago, and I'm really liking this format now, the 2 weeks in between episodes. It gives me more time for preparation and to get great guests like today's. This week's guest is a multi-talented man who reigns from County Clare. He doesn't do things by halves. He's won a number of ultra running events, which I didn't know what these were before he told me. They're essentially any race that's over a full marathon, which has blown my mind. He is also absolutely taken the Irish poker scene and the world poker scene by storm in the last 10 or so years. And here to tell me all about it is Dara O'Kearney. Dara, how are you?
I'm Michael. I'm delighted to be here. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I've been really looking forward to it as well. I love poker. I love running. A few kind of similarities there. I was like, okay, this is one for me, one for them and one for me, kind of crack. So I just want to touch on the running thing, which kind of struck me first when I was kind of looking into your career and stuff like that. How did you get to a point where you're doing an ultra running event, and what is an ultra running event for anyone who doesn't know at home?
Yeah, it's kind of funny I ended up doing that stuff because I was literally the most unathletic kid in school. I was a kid who came last in every race, and everybody just thought was really crap at everything physical. And I actually remember on my last day in school, my best friend said to me, like, I was going off to college, and he was staying in Enniscorthy, and he said, like, you can do anything you like in your life, except obviously anything athletic, because that won't work. So I thought it was quite funny that I ended up running for Ireland, given that. But initially, I just started running sort of in my mid-20s, and it was really just to get fit. Like I had an office job, and I started to get fat, and I decided, okay, I need to do something. So I just started as a sort of a recreational jogger. I remember the first time I ever went for a run. I think I did about half a mile, and I just lay on the bed for 20 minutes afterwards, just in an absolute heap. I couldn't believe how out of shape I was. But I have a sort of compulsive personality anyway. So when I start doing something, I tend to really go for it. So I just kept at the running, doing longer and longer, and worked my way up to running marathons. And I did that for about 10 years, I guess. Started as a pretty bad marathon runner. I think my first marathon time was like 4 hours 20 something. But I gradually improved. Like anything else, if you keep at it, you'll improve. Got my time down to 2 hours 43.
Wow, so 3. Okay.
Yeah, which is pretty good. It's like top 3% or whatever. But like it's not really elite. And then at the age of 39 or 40, I basically realized that I was starting to slow down because of age, and I wasn't going to ever beat that record again. So I've always been a very goal-driven person as well. So I told my friends in my running club, Rahini Shamrocks, that I was basically retired from marathon running now because I couldn't see myself getting any faster, and I didn't want to just get slower and slower every year. But I was obviously still in good shape. So I'd always been slightly intrigued by the idea of running an ultra marathon. And again, to answer your question, to explain what an ultra marathon is, that's anything longer than a marathon. So it's a very broad thing, from races which are only slightly longer than a marathon, for example, 50 kilometers, which is really only 5 miles longer than a marathon, to the longest I ran was 24-hour race. Wow. But people do 6-day races as well. So after the Dublin Marathon that year, I knew that the New York Ultra Marathon was coming up. It was only about 2 week away, I think. And
2007, wasn't it? Yeah.
Sorry? 2007, that's right. Yeah. So I was 42. And I just wanted to try it because one of the things I'd noticed as a marathon runner was I always recovered very quickly, and I always finished very fast. So it was almost like the race wasn't long enough. So I was just intrigued to see if I'd be better at the longer stuff. The New York Ultra Marathon is 60 kilometers. So it's basically like a marathon and a half. So it's not super long. And it's run in Central Park. So it's a great place to run. New York is a great place to run in general because the crowds really get into it. So I went over there with absolutely zero expectations. And then I actually remember standing on the starting line, looking around, trying to pick out who the guys were good, because like I didn't know anything about the ultra running world. So there were all these like young guys with film crews with them, and I thought, okay, well they must be the good guys.
Yeah.
But it turned out they were mostly triathletes. Actually, they were triathletes who were doing this as training, and they weren't actually elite ultra runners. The elite ultra runners were a mixed bag, to say the least. And I was quite surprised to find myself in the lead group for the start of the race, and then I broke away and ended up winning the race, much to my surprise and amazement. And my wife as well, she was with me. She really couldn't believe what was happening.
Like, what's that like going to a kind of something that's more superior than you would say the cornerstone of a runner's career? Like, you know, you look at like the end goal, maybe the unspoken end goal of a lot of runners is a marathon, and then there is that select few who go beyond. And so for you to turn up at an ultra marathon in New York and then go ahead and win it, what, like, can you replicate that winning feeling playing a tournament or playing, you know, no limit cash games? Like, is that a feeling like no other?
I think, to be honest, it is a feeling like no other. I mean, I've had some great highs in my poker career, but nothing like that. I mean, that was just so unexpected. That was almost the equivalent of turning up at Wimbledon, because you enjoy tennis and ending up winning it. It was just so incredibly unexpected. It was it wasn't that I didn't expect to win. I didn't expect to be in the top 50. I mean, it was just, it was, but obviously, but then I realized belatedly at the age of 42 that, yeah, okay, this is what I was actually supposed to be doing. I wasted all those years running marathons, which are basically like a sprint for me. So yeah, it was a really shocking moment. I mean, it was so shocking that we were staying with our friends in New York, and they didn't bother coming to the race because they just thought, I'm just going to run around. So I remember ringing him after the race and saying, "You're not going to believe this, but I actually won." It was just, yeah, it was literally the most unexpected thing, and you know, it got some newspaper coverage back home.
And did you kind of come over the line and then everyone was like, this wasn't supposed to happen? Or was there, you know, a TV crew there kind of being like, okay, what just happened? Like, you know.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't know, because like the ultra running world kind of does that. It throws up these weird outliers where, you know, you don't really know who's going to win on the day. So again, like I guess I looked the part because I was a marathon runner, and it didn't really register with people that this was literally my first race and I'd never done this before. The guy who came second that year had won it the previous year. So he got a lot of focus. But yeah, it took about a week for sort of people to realize, even in the ultra running world, that I was literally this guy who'd come from nowhere. And then the website started covering it.
Who kind of won it on his holidays.
Yeah, this was it. And only 2 weeks after the Dublin Marathon, so like not ideal preparation at all.
Oh, wow, okay, that close.
I hadn't trained in the previous 2 weeks. I was just recovering from Dublin, and it was just so bizarrely unexpected. But yeah, I did find out that obviously this is something I was actually good at, and subsequently went on and ran other ultras and performed pretty well. But yeah, nothing beats the utter surprise of that first moment.
You know, when I was doing a bit of research on this, you know, I have written down here the New York 60 kilometer ultra. I had to touch on it because it was just unbelievable, and it's kind of close. It's not too far off the 2008 European deep stack, which you'll get to in a few moments. But just first of all, I'd love to know: do you still run now? Do you still do a bit, or you?
Yeah, I still train. I run 6 days a week. Most days I run for an hour, and then once a week I do a long run for 4 hours, where I usually cover about 30 miles or 25, 30 miles, something in that region, depending on how fit I am. I kept the training up after I quit competitive running, and but then it kind of gradually dipped down, and I lost a lot of shape. And then a few years ago, I decided that I thought it was actually affecting my poker. I was getting tired. So I wanted that sort of stamina back. So I started training harder again. I don't train anything like the intensity I did when I was running competitively, obviously, but I'm still doing, I mean, what does it work out at? I guess it's about 65, 70 miles a week.
That's incredible. Okay.
Yeah. So it's also something that it's great for my mind. Like it's just a real de-stressor. I usually try to do my long run on a Monday. Sunday is the most stressful day for a poker player. It's the day when you play your longest session. And so I always feel that the long run is sort of like wiping the slate clean and just getting rid of that.
Week.
Yeah. Now we're into a new week, and whatever happened on Sunday is gone.
The Sunday, which you just touched on there, being the most maybe full-on day for a poker player, is that because it's usually tournament final days and final tables, or why is Sunday?
Well, I'm talking about online poker, which obviously is the only type of poker kind of we're doing at the moment in the pandemic. And the big tournaments have always just been on a Sunday, and that's because I was explaining this to a friend recently. I mean, professional poker players effectively, our work week is the mirror opposite of a normal person, because we have to play when people who have jobs are able to play, which is evenings and weekends. Yeah. So because of that, the biggest tournaments have always been put on Sundays. That's always the big day. All the recreational players who work come out and play on a Sunday. All the professionals then play as much as they can on that day to maximize their potential to win something. So Sunday's by far our busiest day, and then the rest during the week we tend to play evenings. Again, we're just following the leisure time of people who work.
Okay, I have you there. And just when you started playing poker, for people who don't know, you started playing poker when you were, was it 42 years of age?
That's right, yeah.
42 years of age. Extremely late in comparison to maybe some of the professional guys who are in the game now. Nonetheless, you made such a dent in the first few years. And I think your first kind of big win was the European Deep Stack, which I touched on earlier, 47,200 euro you came out with that day. What was that like to win? Because to me, that sounds like the same nearly as your kind of 60-kilometer ultra in New York. You show up and you just perform. Like, what did that feel like?
Yeah. Actually, the two experiences were very similar. I'd learned poker the previous May, so about 9 months before the Deep Stack. And the whole reason for learning was actually linked into running. It was before I'd figured out that I was that I was a top class ultra runner. So in my mind, I was coming to the end of my career as a marathon runner, and I needed to find something else to be competitive at. Like, I've always been very competitive. In my youth, I played chess at a high level and backgammon as well. So I've always had something that I was sort of seeking to compete in. And I remember just actually that Easter, 2007, I guess it was, Easter 2007, I was watching TV late one night and the Irish Poker Open was on. And I just looked at it and I saw like there were lots of people of all ages, shapes, sizes. I thought this is definitely something where age doesn't seem to be a limiting factor. So maybe this could be something I could try. And my initial plan was like, okay, maybe if I learn poker now, maybe in about 10 years time when I'm really done with running, I'll
pursue it. Maybe
I'll be able to play at a fairly high level. Maybe I'll be able to play like tournaments like that. And my brother was already playing poker and was pretty good, so he taught me the basics one day, and then I just started playing online. And again, very compulsive personality, so very quickly I was playing 10-12 hours a day every day. And I was actually winning from the start. Like, I never deposited any money online. I the second night I was playing, I came second in a free roll for $160, and then I used that money to play. And as I said, I was winning from the start. So relative to other players, I was good at the time. Relative to now, I was just terrible.
So like when you were taught like the basics by your brother, and then you went online, were you kind of looking at the, going all in, then looking at your percentages to see what you had? Because you were kind of like, I don't really know what I have here. Like, like you flop the nuts or the backdoor straight draw or connectors or whatever. Were you kind of looking and being like, is this good? Is it not good?
No, I never had that. I never had that phase because actually I should explain. I had played a bit of draw poker as a kid, so I knew the hand rankings and I knew concepts like probability, etc. I'm very good mathematically, so I understood that stuff all from the start. And my brother explained it to me. The one thing I didn't really understand was the deeper strategy. But the strategy my brother taught me, which was just to play very tight and very cautiously, that was very effective at the time. And it was also very easy to implement. You were only playing 10% of hands. You generally had a strong hand, and it wasn't too complex. So I think that stood me in good stead at the time. Also, people were like just genuinely terrible at the time.
Yeah.
So it really wasn't difficult to win. It was no great achievement to be winning from the start. So I was winning from the start, and I actually very quickly reached a point where I was winning more playing poker online than I was actually earning from my day job.
I heard that you were at one point playing poker while working on the computer, and you're kind of like,
yeah.
This is it.
At the time I was home working, I was working for myself in IT, and there were large down periods. Like I would have to be at my computer to talk to people who were working on whatever project I was, but most of the time I'd be doing nothing. So it was the perfect environment to just fire up a few tables and play. And I was a cash game player at the time, so you could stop anytime you want. So if I had to do something, I'd just close everything down and do that, and then I go back to playing poker. So it was a perfect way to sort of monetize my downtime as well, and keep me interested. But so I played almost exclusively online, although actually I did start playing very quickly live as well. There was a card club which unfortunately closed last year, I think, the Fitzwilliam, which was a real hub for Dublin poker. So I used to go there 1 or 2 nights a week. And again, I was a winning player right from the start. So in fact, very first tournament in the Fitz, I came second.
Okay.
So I sort of had that positive reinforcement of like, this is something that's worth spending time on. And then it got to the stage where I thought, okay, now maybe I should play a big tournament. So the European Deep Stack seemed like a good one to go for. That was the following February, I think, and it was up in Drogheda. And again, I walked in off the street, and literally nobody knew who I was because I was an online player, but this was literally my first big live event in Ireland. So everybody just thought, some businessman who fancies himself as a poker player walks in the street. Also, at the time, I was doing this thing of I was wearing a suit at all times at the table, which was actually a conscious decision. I was trying to look like a clueless businessman. I thought that might be advantageous to me at that point. So yeah, I just looked like an accountant or whatever who walked in off the street.
Like you were doing business for the weekend in Drogheda, and you Googled where can I play poker right now, and it just happened
exactly,
to
be. Yeah. And I do remember, like, there was just genuine consternation as I went through the tournament, and I was chip leader from early on, and chip leader a lot of the way through the tournament, and I did hear all the murmurings of like, who the hell is this guy? Like, where did he come from? But I think even after I won, the general assumption was it was just some lucky random guy who had come in off the street and run really well for the whole tournament and won. But yeah, that was the first tournament, and it again, like you said, it was similar to the New York experience in that, like, it was totally unexpected. I mean, even I didn't expect it. Like, I knew I could play, but I wasn't at the level of the best players in that tournament at the time, for sure.
Now, when it comes to poker, I watch a lot of poker. I watch tournaments a lot, and I kind of even have this thing now where I'm going back 10, 15 years and watching really fun tables, like with the likes of, Ivy, Helmuth, Tony G, Sammy Farah, all those guys. And I wonder when I'm watching them all play differently, which ones are gambling, which ones aren't gambling. Like, there's what percentage of skill versus gamble is in their game. And basically what I'm going to try put to you is, when you're playing how much do you feel like you're gambling, and then on other side, how much do you feel like you're just using skill, reading people and like not taking chances, if you know what I mean? Because I think people who are kind of lay people who see people playing online poker, it's like red flags, so they're gambling,
Yeah, that's a really good question. And to start from the old time players, like when you look at all that stuff now, in terms of the strategy, like they were all atrocious. They had no real clue what they were doing. Some of them had, very specific skills where they could read people well or whatever. But like, I mean, even beginners now wouldn't make the types of mistakes that they were making back then. It was just horrendous. It was really, really bad. It was entertaining. And
the high stakes poker.
Yeah, that's probably what sold poker. But like any of those guys now, if they came back and they were playing like that, they would be bust so fast. Yeah. It wouldn't be funny. But you can't really blame them, because like there was very little information at the time. Everything had to be worked out from scratch. Knowledge accumulates over time. Humans figure stuff out and then they write it down, and other humans now know that stuff without having to figure it out. So that's essentially what's happened in poker. We've gone from sort of the Wild West days where everybody was terrible, but it was very entertaining, to where we are now, which is really
controlled chaos.
Yeah, controlled chaos, and very, very strategic. So on to the second part of your question. I don't think I'm gambling at all, because I see it as a strategy game. Now, there's obviously a gambling element in that any particular hand or any particular tournament or any particular run of tournaments, I could lose, even if I play perfectly. But if I play perfectly, or as perfectly as I can over the long run, I will win. It's absolutely certain. The way I would describe it is, it's like if you and me were flipping coins, and every time I win, I get €2 from you, and every time you win, you get €1 from me. I'm going to win money in the long run. It doesn't matter how lucky you get, how unlucky I get. Yeah. The odds are in my favor. We do it enough time. We do it once, there's a 50-50 chance you win. We do it twice, there's still a chance you win. But we do it 10,000 times, no way you're winning. Yeah. And poker is similar. The top class poker players are basically playing the odds perfectly. They know what the strategy is. Now, that won't help them in the short term in any one tournament, but in the long term, if they play enough, they'll accumulate.
And I suppose leading on from that then, especially with yourself being, you do a lot online, and then you transitioned to live then from online. So you opened up as a player who played online. Do you prefer playing live?
No, I prefer playing online, and I always have. Live was sort of a nice break from online, and also you get to travel, you get to meet the people that you play with all the time. So, for example, when you go over to Vegas every year for the World Series, you meet the online players that you play against all the time, and it's almost, since these are the people that you see in inverted commas every day. When you're playing, you do feel a sort of an affinity with them, and it's nice to be able to meet them. It's also nice to meet recreational players as well. Like you meet a lot of interesting people playing poker who are not full-time poker players. Yeah. So that's the positive aspect of live poker: the traveling and meeting people. But on the minus side, it's slow as hell. Like when I'm playing online, I play roughly 700 hands an hour. When you're playing live, you're playing 20 hands an hour, 20, 25 hands an hour. So it just feels like a snail's pace. And the other thing which I struggle with is the time difference, because when you're playing live, tournament typically starts around midday, let's say, and plays through until late, and then you're done. But when I'm at home online, like I'm never up at midday. This is early for me now. I usually start playing around 6 p.m. And I play until 3, 4, 5 a.m.
Okay, so completely different hours then.
Yeah, so completely different hours. So I come out of that, and then I go travel to a tournament, and now I have to be out of bed at 10 in the morning, and I have to go and play at 12, and that's difficult to adjust to. And then when I come back, it's also difficult to adjust the other way. So there is this constant disruption. When this pandemic started, I initially thought, this is brilliant, I don't have to do live poker anymore. Yeah. I'll just sit at home and play all day, every day. But I quickly found that I don't really enjoy that anymore. I need that break of getting out of the house, meeting people, playing live poker. So for me, there'll always be a balance. Online will be the thing I enjoy the most and do the most, but I need live as a sort of a diversion.
Okay, and just going back to the WSOP, then, which you briefly mentioned there, like when you go to Vegas and play, do you have a rule of how many bullets you fire, like, which is, entries?
Yeah.
I
have a rough idea of how much I'll spend. Worst case scenario. So if I start well and I win some money, I can play more. But I generally, to be honest, I generally just have a fixed schedule. I look at the schedule in advance and I decide the tournaments I think that are best for me, and I go out enough money to play them, and whatever happens. Sure. That's what I do these days. I was a little bit more disorganized in the early days.
As you naturally would.
Yeah, the first year I went, I do remember distinctly, we ran out of money. I was there with my brother. We ran out of money in the last week, and we ended up, it was a pretty miserable week. And there was one other year I was there where I actually did most of my money in the first week, and I had to hold back enough to play the main event at the end. So I ended up just playing online poker for 4 weeks in my hotel room, which I could have been doing at home.
Oh my God. Really. Okay. Yeah. 2015 wasn't like that.
No, 2015 was definitely wasn't like that. My experience with Vegas from the start was pretty, it was the first time really I had sort of a setback in poker. Like my first year was so successful. And then when I went to Vegas, I thought, well, this is obviously going to continue. This is the way it is. I just win. And I ended up losing 25 grand. And
okay,
that was sort of like, oh, wow, you can actually lose in this game as well.
Yeah.
So, and then the next year I lost, and the next year I lost. And I was like, this is not good.
It's not fun anymore.
Yeah. And it was a combination of two things. One thing was just my game wasn't really set up for Vegas at the time. There was a weird thing in Ireland where nearly all the tournaments had no antes. Which, to explain to people who don't play poker too much, ante is where every player in the hand has to put money in before the cards are dealt. And then the blinds are the people who have to put in a bigger amount of money to get people to play for something. But in Ireland, we had these tournaments that had blinds but no antes. And in Vegas, all the tournaments have antes. And the strategy is quite different. So I was coming over there with a strategy of which was effective in Ireland, but wasn't really good in the different settings in Vegas.
You weren't playing enough hands.
Yeah, so exactly. I wasn't playing enough hands. I was just playing far too tight. So for the first couple of years, I didn't really know what I was doing on that front, and therefore I can't really chalk it down to bad luck. Then there was a couple of years where you just didn't. It's not that I didn't get bad luck, but I was unlucky, but I just didn't get the luck that you need. Like, the thing about tournaments is you need to be lucky. You absolutely need to be lucky. And most of the time, even if you're the best player in the world, you'll lose money in a tournament. But then every so often you'll win a big amount, which makes up. And that's essentially what happened in my career. 2015, I went there, no great expectations, thinking this will be the same as every other year. We'll just see what happens. But that was the year where I did actually run well in a tournament, and that one big score wiped out all the other 25k losses every other year.
And a big one, it was like $262,000.
Yeah, it was actually more than that, because when we were down to two, when we got heads up, we chopped. Yeah, because
nice.
We were basically, like, the difference between first and second was 160,000, I think. He had a big chip lead on me. He was like a 6-1 chip leader, but like, still nobody wants to take a risk for that amount of money. Like, we were guys who played mostly $1,000 to $5,000 tournaments. So playing not a 50-50, but playing one other person for 160,000 didn't seem like a great idea. So when we stopped for the night, we came back the following morning and we had talks and agreed to chop it. He agreed to give me more money than I was strictly entitled to. I think if we'd done a chop based on exactly how many chips we had, I would have got 295, but I pushed for an extra 5 and got it. So I actually ended up getting 300,000 out of that score. But officially, because I came second, it went down as 262.
So he was pictured with the trophy and stuff, but at the end of the day, you chopped nicely.
No, we actually played on for the trophy.
Okay.
You can't chop the trophy. The WSOP is weird because, like most live tournaments, they don't mind if you chop, and if you chop, it's accepted that you chop, and then one person gets whoever had the most chips gets the trophy. The WSOP don't allow chops, so it has to be done sort of behind their back.
Yeah.
So we basically had to meet in like the restaurant, the canteen before we went back to play, and the negotiations took a while. And I remember they were both the WSOP were ringing us both saying, "You're supposed to be back now. If you don't come, you're disqualified."
Yeah.
And we were both going, "Well, they can't disqualify us both, so that's fine." But yeah, it was an informal agreement. Like he got paid out the 425 or whatever it was, and then I had to trust him to send me the extra 35 or 38 or whatever it was. But I did trust the guys. So we ended up playing on for the bracelet, and actually about 5 minutes after we got back, we got it in flipping. I think I had pocket twos and he had ace king, and he won the flip and won the bracelet. But yeah, we were playing for the bracelet only at that point. The money had all been chopped. Even if I had somehow got really lucky and won, I was still only going to get 300.
Get the chop. Okay. And is the end goal a bracelet?
Yeah, the end goal very much was a bracelet. I remember at the time it was really weird because we had chopped for the money, and it was such a large amount of money. I remember when we were walking up to play it out, I felt like it didn't really matter too much anymore. Anyway, I was so far behind in chips that it didn't seem likely that I was going to win. So immediately after losing, I felt a little bit disappointed, but not too much. It was like, well, I kind of did my job. I got as much money as I can out of this, and I played as well as I could. And what happened. And then I came home and people kept asking me, like, were you not gutted to be so close to a bracelet and not win it? And I kind of went along with it. I was like, yeah, I'm really disappointed. Because it was easier than trying to explain why I wasn't disappointed. That for me, the money was the more thing. But I do remember distinctly about 11 months later, I was out on a long run, and it was like it just suddenly hit me. It was like, fuck, if I'd won that flip, I was right back in it and I could have won a bracelet. And I felt it was like a delayed reaction. I think maybe I processed it that way because I didn't want to waste a lot of time grieving or recovering from the fact that I come so close to a bracelet. But it is a big deal. Like for a poker player, it's essentially like winning an Olympic gold medal.
Yeah, it's huge.
An Irish player hasn't won a bracelet since, actually Owen won one online this year, but I think in most people hasn't won one live in Vegas, let's say, since 2007, I think. So for my generation that came up around that time, we all started online. It was kind of a big deal of like, who'll be the first of us to win a bracelet? And that was sort of a legitimate shot. That year, actually, a bunch of us made final tables, and two of us, another player got heads up as well. So it looked like that was going to be the year where our generation was going to finally break out and win a bracelet.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it didn't happen.
And I suppose a question that I'd have to ask you, just because I play as well, and I'm fascinated by if people have one, and if so, what is it? What's your hand that you just throw in all the time? You just fold it like mine's like Queen 5 or 7-2 offsuit.
Yeah, I don't really have that. I have to say, like I'm very, very unemotional and analytical when it comes to the table. And like, even though I do notice patterns in my brain forming, like there are periods where I always seem to lose with a certain hand.
Yeah.
And there are certain hands which I very easily fall into that category. Hands like ace, queen, or kings. Like kings always hurts when you lose because
sure.
It's the second best hand.
Aces come then.
Yeah, if you get in against ace rag, you're going to lose 30% of the time almost. If you get in against a smaller pair, you're going to lose 18%. So kings is a heartbreaker hand as well. But I never really feel that. The one hand I do feel a sort of a positive affinity towards, for some reason, is pocket threes, because I've won so many big pots in my life hitting a set with pocket threes. But that said, if I'm dealt pocket threes and the correct play is to fold it, I will happily fold it.
The low pocket pairs are great. I think low pocket pairs are always nice. Yeah, it always ends up being a set or a full. Well, no,
Yeah, well, it's
obviously.
very easy to play because if you don't hit your set, you're gone with pocket threes. And it's not a heartbreak hand because you kind of go in with low expectations. It's all about expectations. Like when you're dealt aces, you expect to win the hand, and then if you don't, it's really disappointing. Kings, it's the same, but with pocket threes, it's like, well, it's pocket threes. So,
Who's your favorite poker player of all time?
of all time, that's a really good question. Wow, I really should know the answer to this. I mean, I guess maybe just in terms of his impact on the game, I would have to say Doyle Brunson. His book was actually the first one I read, or one of the first ones actually. I think I might have got a Helmet book before his, but Super System was a big influence on me in the early days.
Yeah.
And just Doyle has been around forever. Like he won the World Series back in 1970. 50 years later, he's still playing at the top level.
It's insane. It's weird to watch him in that period we were speaking about earlier, the 2007, where you've got the guys like Tom Dwan throwing in money for sport, and he kind of sits back and he does play. He plays so conservatively, and people kind of say, "Oh, he's boring," but if you watch him, he's actually a really, really good player and a great reader too.
Yeah, and like in the early days, he was the wild man. He was the guy who was playing crazy. But then he wrote the book and he gave away all the secrets. And it's also a fact that like as you become more famous in the game, you actually have to play tighter because everybody's trying to play against you and everybody's trying to bluff you and they won't let you bluff them. So like when I play in Ireland, where I'm reasonably well known, it's a very different experience to say playing in Australia, where not as many people would know me, because people just want to play against you because they see you as a name, and that changes the way you have to play then. And Doyle is the ultimate person who recognized that. That's why Doyle has stayed at the top. He's just always adjusted his game to whatever is happening around him.
And what's on the agenda for, let's say, this evening? Will you go into tournament now this evening and play?
Well, actually, I've just come off a period where I was playing every day because my sponsor Unibet had their online series for the last 4 weeks. So I was playing every day. So this week I'm sort of catching up on the other stuff. For the rest of the day, I do a lot of coaching these days. I have one coaching session scheduled. Then in the evening, we're actually recording an episode of our podcast with Vanessa Cade. Yeah, the chip race with Vanessa Cade, who just won the biggest online tournament this year, the Sunday Million for $1.5 million. So we're interviewing her, and then I have some work to do on a course I'm working on, and also a third book. So I'm trying to catch up on that stuff this week. I probably won't play again until Friday or maybe Saturday. Actually, Friday's tomorrow, isn't it? Yeah. tomorrow or Saturday.
They're all blending into one.
Yeah, but I'm not playing tonight.
Well, we've had a great chat, and I think we have something excited to kind of finish up on. I'm showing you here on camera. You can't see this for audio only, but I've loads of questions here and stuff like that. But we kind of got into a chat there that I think went a nice way. And as I said before, like I always kind of there's one for them and one for me, and this one was definitely one I've really enjoyed doing. So from here in the interview, Dara and I decided to head over to play a few hands of poker, and I recorded those, well, a few of them, and they're going to be at the end of the episode if you watch it on YouTube, so you'll be able to see what I have and see how I play them. And we just had a little bit of fun for 5 or 10 minutes at the end. But other than that, I'm going to leave you with the last regards to Dara, and thank you so much to Dara for coming on. It was a really, really fun one to shoot. And until 2 weeks' time, see ya.
Oh
no. Oh, well, I have to say that was a lot of fun, and thank you so much, Dara, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure for me too. Thanks, Michael. Really, really fun to play.
Yeah, well, thank you very much again for coming on, Dara. I really appreciate it. A lot of fun.
Thanks, Michael. No, my pleasure.
Cheers.
Okay, yeah. Well, I have your screen blocked out, so I'm not looking at your cards.
Okay, so we're playing a few hands here. As you can see, Dara has me severely in a bad position here, but maybe one or two all-ins on my part might get me at a nice spot here. So I'm gonna call this one. What a flop. Nope. What did you have?
I queen jack there.
I had 6-2 or 6-2.
Even if I run into a better hand, I have lots of possibilities with the straight. Okay.
Okay. Wow.
Double paired board.
Oh, full house.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I'll check it down. Nope.
I had ace jack. We were probably chopping, but
I had I had like 2 low numbers.
yeah, we were chopping there because we were both playing the board. But
playing
when I go all in, you can't really call because you have to guess whether I actually have a pair or a 3 or something or a 9.
I'll show up here for fun.
Oh wow. Okay, well, I guess I'm gonna have to fold my hand. I just have 5-6, but I could make a straight with a 3, but that's too much to call.
I had jack 6.
Yeah, the jack. Yeah,
Made a pair.
yeah.
Still not a nice hand to shove all in with that early. It's a weird one. Let's go. Let's do this again.
Oh, I have a queen here, but I hate it. Okay, I'm gonna call. But wow, you hit 2 pair. Yeah, nice. I really didn't like it, even though I had the queen.
Okay. Do I have potential to be a good player?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of common leaks, as we call them, that starting players make, but you've definitely got something. How do I do this?
So I could make it big. Okay, I like my hand. I call.
Okay, 64-36. This is where you could get lucky now.
75.
Now you're winning.
Yeah. Oh, come on.
Hold.
Oh no. Oh, well, I have to say that was a lot of fun, and thank you so much, Dara, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure for me too. Thanks, Michael. Really fun to play.
Yeah, well, thank you very much again for coming on, Dara. I really appreciate it. A lot of fun.
Thanks, Michael. No, my pleasure.
Cheers.